Hello, welcome back to the Union Pacific Railroad at Geneva Subdivision in N-Scale. My name is Darrell Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 15 of season 2020. This episode is on through trains. These are trains which run from one end of the layout to the other end of the layout without any operations in between. They don't have any operations, but it doesn't mean that they don't have stops, because there are other trains on the main line that they have to make way for and take their turn in traveling across the main line. This is train OCSRO, a through crude oil train, and it is heading out of track 2 of the East Staging Yard. There are 11 tracks there, and are numbered 1 through 11, starting with the right-hand side going to the left-hand side. This train, the OCSRO, is a train that originates in the Canal Street Yard, which is in Chicago, and its destination is the Roper Yard in Salt Lake City, Utah. Coming out of the East Staging Yard, which represents Chicago, it is coming out of the Canal Street Yard and heading onto the Geneva Subdivision. And on the layout, the first model portion of the Geneva Sub is River Forest, where you can see it's coming to a stop here at the Signal Bridge in River Forest. The reason the train is coming to a stop is, as I said, it has to make way for other trains on the railroad. This time it's waiting for a westbound metro train, which will be stopping shortly at the metro station in River Forest. All right, the metro train comes to a stop in River Forest to drop off and pick up passengers. And after a brief stay, it will continue on westward out of Chicago. With the metro train through and the main line clear, the OCSRO gets the signal and is able to continue westbound. Through trains are a very popular train for engineers to want to run when we have operating sessions. They are the easiest trains to run. There's no dropping off or picking up cars or swapping out locomotives or any kind of operations from that standpoint. They basically just have to follow the signals and wait their turn as they make way for other trains that are on the main line. This crude oil train is made up of BLMA crude oil tank cars. These were purchased when BLMA first came out with these a number of years ago. I have 2 sets of the black and white cars. Each set has 12 cars in a set, so you can see 24 of the black and white cars, and then this particular train also has 3 of the black cars. So I have 2 sets of the black and white, and then I have 2.5 sets of the black cars. We'll see all the other sets of the black cars when we see the eastbound train. So the OCSRO made it across the Des Plaines River and through Maywood, and now it's pulling through Proviso. This train is pulled by 2 Kato s2020e15 ACEs. You can see the Proviso classification yard there, loaded with cars. We're still in Proviso here, but pulling now past the engine facilities on the left, and then on the right are the car shops, and then in the foreground is a holding track. Mainly holds excursion trains, extra freight cars, and extra metro cars. And we're just west of the Proviso yard and going under the Mannheim Road overpass. This is going to be all parking lot there. And we now pull into Elmhurst, where we meet another metro train, which is eastbound, heading towards Chicago. There are 27 cars, I should say 27 crude oil cars on this train. The train also includes a couple of buffer cars. There's a covered hopper at the front end of the tank cars, and then a box car at the end. So that makes a total of 29 cars pulled by the 2 SD70 ACEs. We're pulling into and through Wheaton. As you can see, the warehouse district is growing there. I completed one of the warehouses from Walthers. Actually, I have 2 of them now. First one I did quite a while ago. The bigger one I just did recently. Looks like we have the green to continue west through and past Wheaton, Illinois. This operations video is going to be on 2 through trains going in opposite direction. We've been watching the OCSRO. We're also going to be following then a crude oil train going in the opposite direction. This is the eastbound train. It's the OSVCS. This is again a crude oil train from Savage, Utah, with destination of the Canal Street Yard in Chicago. So here we see it going through Clinton, Iowa, and getting ready to cross the Mississippi River. Now it would be nice if these 2 trains could just go in opposite directions and pass each other and be on their way across the Geneva subdivision, but as I said, there are other trains on the main line. And one train that's going to generate some operating possibilities or operating interest is a manifest train that's switching cars in Franklin Grove. So in order for the two crude oil trains to go past each other, the eastbound crude oil train, the OCSRO, OCSRO and OSVCS will come to a stop here right before it gets to Franklin Grove, and then it will have to wait for the westbound crude oil train as it goes around the manifest train working in Franklin Grove. So here we are at milepost 100, which is at the west end of Franklin Grove. And as you can see, there is a manifest train there that's switching industries in Franklin Grove. So these two crude oil trains will need to operate and go around the manifest train working in Franklin Grove. So our westbound train is now crossing the Rock River and heading into Rochelle. And the Geneva Subdivision is a left-hand running railroad, but since this train needs to go around the manifest train, at milepost 73 it is crossing over from track 2 to track 1 and will now become a right-hand running train. So as the OCSRO goes through Rochelle, it is on the right-hand side of the main line on track 1. Here you see it going through Rochelle across the diamonds in Rochelle, the crossing between the BNSF and the Union Pacific. And it's going to be crossing First Avenue and going past Highway 38 and the interchange yard here, which is right next to the Del Monte warehouse. We get a chance to see the entire consist of the train. These tank cars by BLMA are outstanding cars. Very, very well detailed, body-mounted couplers, and very smooth running. They do not handle really sharp curves, though. I don't know what their absolute minimum radius is, but they do have some trouble with very tight radius curves. All right, the crude oil train now is going past the manifest train now, which is working in Franklin Grove. Now, the main cars of the manifest train are at Global 3, but the locomotives and the train, the locomotives and the cars that need to be dropped off and picked up are in Franklin Grove. So here we have Global 3, most of the cars of the manifest train that's working in Franklin Grove. The manifest train uncoupled here in the Global 3 and then went through this control point here and onto Franklin Grove, and so that it could do its operations in Franklin Grove. Franklin Grove is not a large enough siding to handle a complete train, so it must uncouple from most of its cars and pull here with the cars that it needs as it works Franklin Grove. Now as it gets to the end of Franklin Grove, now it's crossing over back onto track 2. So that it can continue then westward to Clinton and eventually the Roper Yard in Salt Lake City. As you can see, the train has picked up quite a bit of speed as it doesn't have too many trains stopping it for a while, so it's going at full throttle almost as it goes across the Mississippi River and then heading into Clinton. And then from Clinton, it will head into the staging yards and complete its run on the Geneva subdivision. As I mentioned, there are 4 through trains that are crude oil trains, but I don't have 4 sets of tank cars for the 4 trains. In an operating session, I will have each set of trains run twice. So the train that you just saw runs not only as the OCSRO, but it also later in this operating session runs as the OCSSV, which is from the Canal Street Yard to Savage, Utah. And then this train, the OSVCS, will run again later in the session as the ROCS. So the 2 trains, the actual 2 physical trains, run as 4 through trains during a typical operating session. With the westbound crude oil train through Franklin Grove, the main line is now clear for the eastbound OSVCS to continue through Franklin Grove eastward toward Chicago. The main thing I have to kind of watch out for when I run these trains twice during the operating session is to try not to have the same person run both of the trains. So if it's 2 different people running the 2 westbound crude oil trains, or in 2 different people running the 2 eastbound crude oil trains, it's not really that noticeable to the people there that they're running a train twice. The same thing is accomplished with the coal trains. I have 2 physical coal trains, and then each of the coal trains run twice for the 4 through coal trains that run during an operating session. As I said, the through trains are really quite popular. A lot of people just want to run trains. They don't really want to deal with switch lists and doing a lot of switching. Personally, I like the switching. That's the kind of trains that I like to do. And there are some people that really get into that and like to do that. But a lot of people, especially if they're newcomers, their first time, they like to just stick with the through trains. And all they have to worry about is following signals and talking to the dispatcher from time to time. Here we get a good shot of the train going behind the trees. Those trees are there because there are prototypically in northern Illinois clumps of trees like that across the countryside, but also that's a good view block on the 180-degree curve there. So from the Global 3 that it went past, it's now pulling into Rochelle. This train has 29 tank cars, and then the 2 buffer cars. So this eastbound coal train is a little bit longer than the westbound train, and this one is completely black BLMA crude oil tank cars. And here we went across the crossing in Rochelle. Here you have the 9th Street crossings and the railroad park, gift shop, and power plant with the water tower. And now we're on the eastern outskirts of Rochelle, and we'll go ahead and cross over the Rock River. There's a bunch of trackage that skipped between Rochelle and Wheaton. So on one side of that hole in the wall is outside of Rochelle, and then on this side of the wall we're already in Wheaton. So that's about 60, 70 miles of skipped mileage, skipped trackage. From Wheaton, we'll continue on and go through Elmhurst. These 2 locomotives are GEVOs, General Electric Evolution Series locomotives by Fox Valley. And we're pulling through the city of Elmhurst, past the metro station in Elmhurst. The metro station is a Cotto kit that's actually patterned after the metro station in Schaumburg, but I've adapted it for the metro station here in Elmhurst. Here you get a good close-up look at the Fox Valley GEVOs. Very nice locomotives. As you notice, we are slowing down here, and we're going to be coming to a stop at milepost 15 at the Proviso Yard. So we're going to go ahead and continue under the Mannheim overpass, and we're going to be coming to a stop. I believe we have a red signal here at the milepost 15. This is the west entrance into the Proviso Yard. So we do have a red signal. So we'll go ahead and come to a stop here. And the reason we're stopped is because there is a auto rack train that's coming out of the Proviso Yard. The lead unit there is a Scale Trains C44-9. The second locomotive is a AC 4400 by Cotto. So this auto rack train is going from the arrival departure track and is going to be crossing over onto track 1 of the main line. And then to make sure it doesn't run into our train, which you can see in the distance, it will take a second crossover and go on to track 2 of the main line. And then it will continue westbound on track 2 on the left-hand side of the main line. This is sometimes one of the best visuals that you can have during an operating session, watching trains go through crossovers. And especially this one where you have a double crossover. When I put these crossovers in, and as you can see as the train goes through the 2 of them, I made sure that between the crossover there was a straight track long enough to handle the longest car. So there's a trackage between the crossovers of about 12 inches. So you don't go from one crossover straight into the other. And visually it looks pretty cool to see it snaking through the 2 crossovers. Also helps that I have number 10 turnouts on the main line. With the track clear, the dispatcher will now throw the turnouts and set the signal for our crude oil train to continue towards the Canal Street Yard in Chicago. Get another good look at the Fox Valley GEVOs. And we're going to go ahead and go past the provisional classification yard. The classification yard has 9 classification tracks and 1 bypass track. The bypass track is used to get the locomotives from one side of the yard to the other. Looks like we have a green to continue. And another good chance to see the entire consist. Bunch of crude oil tank cars. When we moved away from Rochelle in 2014, there were quite a few crude oil tank trains running through Rochelle. And I think the number increased gradually, but I'm not sure how many are still running today. I know they did at least start working on some pipelines. So the number may have decreased a little bit since then, I'm not sure. But the timeline for this particular layout is right around the time we moved. So 2014, 2015 is the timeline I'm mostly shooting for as the train goes through Maywood and across the Des Plaines River. And then finally comes out of the forest preserve and through River Forest. So there are two examples of through trains on the layout. Two crude oil trains, a westbound and an eastbound, with stops along the way. Hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Be sure that you always enjoy the greatest hobby in the world, model trains. Hope all of you have a great day. Take care.